Here's a quick news break with yours truly. I'm the one and only. I go by the name of Mr. TALIAFERRO. Please make sure you're following your boy. It's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all that. It's Mr. TALIAFERRO. I know that is my intro, but please don't let it get so repetitive that you forget to actually take care of that business if you can. If you rock out with your boy, please make sure you're following me on those social media platforms. It helps my business grow. The numbers, man, the numbers are very important today. One platform that has been running up the numbers is the Joe Budden podcast. So we're going to do episode 28 a tad bit differently than the usual format. I just want to talk the culture. To me, this platform has earned this spot in the culture. Really quickly here, I want y'all to know who FERRO is. All right, if you don't know, I'm a 4-year college graduate from a PWI. I studied journalism. I worked at the worldwide leader in sports, ESPN. I came back. I was like, that's great, but I want to do my own thing. You see, I've been able to build my platforms up from the ground up. Over 300-some thousand on YouTube, almost 100,000 on Facebook. NBA platforms around 30,000. We doing the thing. I'm 27 years of age. What up? How y'all doing? Welcome. This your boy. This is what I do around here. But be clear. I study stuff. I study the culture. This is how I've been able to make a living for the last 5-6 years. The reason why we're doing this news break like this is because take this from your boy. The Joe Budden podcast has made history. Y'all understand that? I don't watch a lot of content because I got to come on camera to you guys. Y'all deserve my news with a little bit of commentary and takes from me, not anyone else. If you listen to a lot of other outlets, even if you don't try, sometimes you'll regurgitate their thoughts, other people's, other personalities, their opinions, their takes. So I don't listen to anybody else. I don't. But I do have a soft spot in my heart for the Joe Budden podcast. It used to be the Brilliant Idiots. They're a little inconsistent for me. So week to week, 2 times a week, I got to listen to that Joe Budden podcast. It's become one of my little guilty pleasures. Got to admit to you guys, it's been kind of weird the last few episodes. All the Joe Budden fans know what I'm talking about here, the podcast fans. So what we're going to do is give the news. Then I'm going to leave this platform open for you guys' commentary. I'm going to give my take as well on it, but I want to give you guys the news of what the heck is going on and why we're talking about this for an entire news break. So for all the Joe Budden podcast fans out there, y'all know the last 3 episodes were really the last 2 because they didn't shoot last Wednesday. So for about the last week and a half, it's been interesting. We have not seen Rory and Mal in their respective seats, and Joe Budden on the latest episode finally decided to explain what's going on. He originally said that Rory and Mal were on vacation, but come on, nobody believed that. We now have some insight of what's going on. So what I'm going to do is put on the screen a Reddit article. If you did not check out the last episode of the Joe Budden podcast, to me, this best summarizes up what happened. Y'all know I wouldn't tell y'all no BS. I actually watched the episode, but I thought this Reddit episode pretty much summarized everything. Pretty much Rory and Mal are basically on strike. Joe doesn't know if they'll ever come back, but if they do, they will always have their seats. Ice and Savon are not the replacements, just who Joe could find to hold their spots while they figure out this miscommunication. According to Joe, it is just a miscommunication. It isn't about money. It isn't a fight, just a miscommunication. And Park adds and says it's also business PTSD. Joe has talked to both Mal and Rory even in their absence, and it's still love. Joe believes that both are coming back. Joe also spoke to the tension the fans pointed out the last few weeks and said it was very real. Says the business talk can't outweigh the friendship talks. Joe also speaks to Rory saying he wants to fight Joe every week and how it was more serious than it sounded. Like Joe said he doesn't play with friends like that. And Rory replied with, what if we're not friends? Important. Joe told Rory to take a few podcasts off after the tension got so thick between them. Rory agreed. Important. Mal is standing with Rory because he doesn't think Joe should have the power to tell Rory to just stay home from the podcast. Apparently the convo got personal, and Joe said things to Mal he shouldn't have said. Park said it didn't go well because, again, Parks was there at the time. I do think it's important for the people to know, again, my living, how I make money, how I feed my family. I report news. I'm not a podcast. I know I kind of draw these thin lines. I report music and sports news, and I do highlights with the NBA. That's how I make a living. I get paid through YouTube, Facebook, all those places. That's how I make my living. So I do, and I'm also a big fan of the podcast. Like I said, it's the only podcast that I tune in week to week, 2 times a week at that. So I feel like I got an intricate or interesting and very rare perspective on the Joe Budden podcast because I'm both a fan and I'm also a content creator who I've been doing it for a little minute. I've had a lot of success. People come up to me all the time like, yo, how do you get a podcast off the ground? Look, I don't really do that. I do something differently, so I don't really have the greatest advice for a lot of people. But what Joe and them been able to do is historic in our culture, to be able to do the things that they've done to captivate an audience. I believe the Joe Budden podcast popped off Spotify, and now Spotify is becoming one of the if not the leader. They got Michelle Obama, Joe Rogan. I think Joe's podcast was like the test dummy for those platforms. Hip hop did that. Joe's podcast, they got on there talking hip hop and R&B, and to me, they've helped take this the podcast space to new places. Excuse me, but I got to be honest. Being a fan of the podcast is certain things that us podcast fans know. We've always known Joe Budden to be arrogant. We don't care. He's got an incredibly huge ego, right? It's toxic. Whatever the words y'all want to use today, it is that. He's overly aggressive. Oftentimes, as a fan of the podcast, it's been uncomfortable to listen to Joe Budden. Oftentimes, he'll hit you with the stop. And I'm like, yo, if I were there, I would never let a grown man talk to me like that. But clearly, these were friends behind the scenes. They know how Joe Budden is. They were comfortable with the way Joe talked. I said all that to set off this premise. I never thought I'd see the day that Rory and Mal or anybody leaves that podcast. I'll get into that in a second here with just the value of how they make money. All right? Rory and Mal and Parks and anybody else that works with Joe seems to understand like Joe's ego is what it's going to be. But I never in my wildest dreams thought somebody would leave a situation like that. Joe listening to that podcast to me still doesn't get it. You know, if you have the audacity to somewhat say, yo, Rory has been threatening me with fights, because that was his whole premise, right? He said I went back and listened to some of the podcasts, and he was like, yo, for like 6 weeks in a row, Rory had been, pretty much threatening to fight him. As a podcast listener, I just thought it was fun in games, right? I will admit Rory had got a lot more entertaining over the last 7 to 8 months. He stopped being like the yes man on the podcast. He started coming with some fire takes. He started shooting from half court. He started taking the pod to the next level. I got to be real with you. With that being said, when you start to play a role, which is what I think Rory was partially doing, and he's kind of admitted this in other places, like, yo, I come on the podcast, I do my job, and I leave. And you can get caught up in like playing a role in a podcast, right? You can get caught up being a character of yourself. And I think that's what Rory's kind of admitting. Like he became a character of himself. And part of the role that he was playing included week to week, Joe and Rory had kind of this like dynamic where they call out each other and say, yo, we can move these tables now. We could do this now. I saw Joe say, for 6 weeks, this man has threatened me, essentially is what he said. And I'm thinking to myself, yo, Joe said he's uncomfortable with that. Joe, you started that from my perspective on the podcast. 4 years, I'm a long time listener of the pod. For years, Joe has always, every now and then, subliminally said, yo, we can move these tables. He's gotten up. And again, I always looked at it as jokes. Like I never took it serious. I was never like, oh, they about to fight for it. Come on now. They not about to fight on camera. And if they did fight, it ain't going to make it to the light of day. You're not doing that. You're not doing that, right? I thought it was fun in games. I thought Rory had bought into this role that was no longer the yes man of Joe. It happened like right around quarantine. This new role of I don't agree with your take. I disagree with everything you got to say. And with that being said, I don't know what Rory has going on in his household. That ain't my place to speak on that. You could tell he had been on edge a little bit, and it created this new version of himself, this character of himself, but it created for damn great entertainment and content. So with that, I'm like, Joe, you really gonna make it seem like Rory started that little back and forth with y'all? Come on, Joe. And I'm somebody who believes, and I said this on this platform, that Joe should have taken the Spotify deal. And I know Joe wanted to keep his rights. And I know he did not want to sell over the other guy's rights. But I'm hearing upwards of $20 million was offered from Spotify to the Joe Budden podcast. And it would have included their rights. But, what if, and like, I am a creator. Obviously, I want to own my own. But if you can license your rights over for 4 or 5 years and become, we ain't talking about a couple $1,000s, $20 million. After the deal is up, you get your rights back. You get the rights to the podcast back. And I don't know if this was the business. I don't know this. But if that's the case, in my mind, it's like, yo, come on, bro. How could y'all not? How could y'all not? That's generational wealth type money. If you're able to pocket $2, $3, $4 million just for talking 2 times a week, fam, I thought that was a bad move from Joe. And I'm somebody who believes Joe is one of the better. I think Joe's the best in our culture right now at creating content. I think Everyday Struggle was an absolute success. It made hip hop into debate television. It first taked hip hop. I thought it was an incredible idea. It was Joe's idea. I thought the state of the culture. I didn't love the show, but I thought the concept of the show was dope. Doing it with Revolt, Black Owned, Diddy, that's great. Another great concept. Right? I just think the pull up, another great, a little different than what we had seen before, but I've never seen a fan base like Joe's fan base. Like, I didn't listen to Joe the artist. I'm just interested in the podcast. But Joe is again and again, and then we talk about the podcast, he's great at creating content. In my opinion, outside looking in, awful at managing that content. Awful at the business side of it. And for him to come in there and take little to no accountability, at least on the podcast last episode, for just who he is. Like, if I'm Rory or Mal or Parks or whomever, in my opinion, it's like, yo, I know what Joe Budden is. They seemingly comfortable with how he talks. Whatever. I'm going to deal with it because there's money in being next to a guy as creative and great at creating concepts like a Joe Budden. There's just good money in it. Whatever he got to do to get his own ego off, whatever. So that brings me to here. Do you know how bad it had to get behind the scenes for Rory to say, all right, I'm going to take you up on that offer, I'm going to leave? Because part of the reason why Rory and Mal are no longer there, or at least Mal is, Joe was like, yo, Rory, I think you should take a couple weeks off. But it wasn't like can you take a couple weeks off? It's really a suspension. It's like a principal suspending a kid from school. Like, no, I need you to take a couple weeks off. And Ma was like, yo, whoa, fam. According to Joe, it's like, yo, bro, you gonna make him take? You can't make him. Like, you can't make me take a couple weeks off. If I say I'm good, I'm good. If I want to do my job, I want to do my job. Okay. Yeah, I think that is where Ma was like, all right, bro, I'm not finna sit. That's enough. Like, we let you get your ish off. Your ego is whatever. You want to be the guy in the room. You want to be the ego of all egos in the room. Fine. But that's too far even for me. You understand how bad it had to be for Rory to potentially, if he doesn't come back, which I don't know. Joe says he thinks in about a month everything will go back to normal. Hopefully it does. Do you know how bad it had to be for Rory to say, I'm gone, man? And for Mal to say, nah, I ain't doing this. You know how hard it is in the world today? I don't want to personalize this too much, but since this is my platform, I'm trying to retire my mama, right? My mama has cleaned all her life, right? I'm from Memphis. I'm trying to retire my mama. And I only bring that up to say I'm one of the few people that actually make money. Like, there are millions of people that create content every day and don't make money. And I've been blessed to make money in this space. I'm one of the few that make money. I actually make money on YouTube and Facebook and other platforms, right? I actually monetize my content. And I'm super appreciative of the love. But I'm always understanding of my position. That's why y'all don't hear me complain on here a lot. Come on, I come from them places for real. I can't speak for them. I'm from that for real. So I know what it's like to be broke. I've worked at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. I worked at other burger joints. I worked in warehouses in Memphis. I worked for Nike. I worked for magazine warehouses. I've been around the block, bro, in my young life, and I know how hard it is. And what I do, I can't speak for everybody else. I shoot my own stuff. I don't have cameraman and all. I shoot this myself. I bought all my equipment, $100,000 in equipment, right? Like, I bought all my stuff. I understand how blessed I am. It's a lot of work for me. It's a lot of work, but I understand how blessed I am to be in this place to make money off of my content. Can you imagine for Maul, let's just stay with Maul, for him to say, nah, B, I'm out. It's hard out, bro. People work hard for their money, right? People work hard for their money. I'm appreciative of people that get off work and listen to your boy, right? Like, that's something you don't need to take for granted. That's why I always say your time, love, and support. I got it on my shirt. We won't take it for granted, right? Like, that is something, man. For him to say, for now, I'm done. We need to, I think that speaks to how disrespectful whatever this conversation that Maul and Joe had in connection with the Rory situation, it had to be really bad, bro. Yeah, I hope everything goes back to normal. Like I said, Joe said about a month. Y'all let me know in the comment box below. What were your first thoughts on Joe Budden coming to the table and saying, two of the gang and left. They're taking a break. I essentially forced Rory to take a break, and Maul was like, I ain't rocking. And I respect the heck out of that, by the way. Y'all let me know. This is one for the culture, man. This is Charlamagne called this one, man. And I've always been somebody that says, I think Charlamagne's a great interviewer. I don't think he's necessarily a great creator of content individually, but he knows how to run a business. He's better at business. He knows what the heck he's doing with business. He said one time, Joe he always is going to implode. And I think Joe Budden is like the exact opposite of Charlamagne in that regard. I think Joe is great at creating content. Great. I'm talking about just great at creating content, not a bad interviewer either. But the business side of it, never thought I'd see this day. But now looking back on it, it's like, okay, if these dudes got a backbone, I can now see how this day came about. Man, you talk to people any kind of way, man. I'm just saying, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Maybe the money isn't as great as it used to be for now. Yeah, things like this can happen. I hope they get it back together, because that last episode wasn't it, B. The energy was cool the first episode without him. Nah, we're going to need that back. We're going to need that one back, bro. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it in the comment box below. Just drop your comments. What were your thoughts on Joe announcing that Rory and Maul are taking some time off? Thank y'all so much for the time, love, and support. I don't take it for granted. Salute. Catch full new episodes of FERRO's music-based platform every day only on YouTube at It's Mr. TALIAFERRO. You can also find clips, updates, giveaways, and more on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, also at It's Mr. TALIAFERRO. For all basketball fans, make sure you tune in to FERRO's daily highlights, reports, and commentary on YouTube at FERRO, and even more updates on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at FERRO as well.